Hi everyone, welcome back. And today I'm joined by, in my opinion, one of the most renowned MMA reporters in the world, the man from MMA Fighting, and the man who you should all get out of your seat and on your feet for, because it's the man, Mike Heck. Mike, thank you so much for joining me, man. I had to throw that intro in there. I'm an MMA Hour fan, so I had to throw that in there. How you doing this morning or this afternoon?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Great callback to the On the Nose theme song, and I appreciate you having me on, man.
Of course, man. Well, look, Alex is a bit sick today, but he sends his apologies for not being here. But first thing, man, I also want to get into is something I'm always interested in when talking to reporters and journalists alike. I always am interested into how they got into following the sport of MMA and how they got interested in also covering it. So, can you give me a little bit of a backstory on how this journey began for you?
So, I would say I'm one of those like second generational UFC fans where, I mean, there were the OGs that watched from the very beginning. And then I'd say like the second generation was when the first season of The Ultimate Fighter came on. And that's pretty much where I came in. I mean, I've watched fights. I watched some of the early UFCs. I remember Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture's first fight and their second fight. And then when the first season of Tough came on, credit to Diego Sanchez for being such a weirdo. Yeah. But that's what hooked me. I had to watch and see what that man was going to do. It was like watching the movie Bloodsport, and Frank Dukes would just do these like weird stretches and whatever he needed to do to get ready for combat. I felt like Diego Sanchez was like the Frank Dukes of MMA. And after watching that show, and then obviously watching the finale and seeing Diego win the season, and then watching obviously Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonner do their thing, that was really what got me in. And then it was kind of like an in and out relationship from there. Like I would be into it, then I'd be out of it. There, like life would take over. I was a big Boston sports guy, so I'd really be paying attention more to that and just kind of keeping up what's going on with the UFC. But as the years progressed, started, getting into broadcasting and doing radio and started talking to fighters. And once I started talking to fighters, that was it. I was like, This is what I want to do. I just want to hear their stories, and they're also interesting because why would someone want to actually get in the cage and fight another human being? Some of it's really raw, and
I think the same.
Really, really real, and some of it's like, well, I was a math teacher and I was bored because I used to be a high school wrestler. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And some are just like, I was scared to death of fighting, so I got in one fight and I loved it so much that I just kept doing it. Just all sorts of weird stories and where people come from and how they find the sport. And fast forward to now. Here we are all these years later, my man.
Definitely. Well, look, man, something I actually find very entertaining is those watch parties you do with GC and all the guys over there with the MMA Hour. What's that experience like for you? Because, sometimes I wish I could go back and watch my own reaction to certain events, especially the big one was the Izzy and Pineda last fight where, obviously Adesanya got the knockout and you guys went crazy. So what's that sort of, been like? And I know you made your transition to MMA fighting a few years ago now. So how's that sort of experience been for you over the last few years, being with MMA fighting and also the MMA Hour?
So starting with the watch party, it just kind of came out of nowhere. I think it was probably maybe September of last year. GC had sent me a message in our Slack channel about it. I think I'd just come back from vacation at the time. And I was like, oh, that's awesome if we're going to do that. And I didn't know how to like respond to it with the higher ups, because usually there's like, they will plant a seed one place and then you can't really keep the secret too long when you have an idea that people are talking about. So I got it and I was in on it, and then I waited like a day or two. And then of course I was like, are we doing this? What's going to happen? And I was told like, wait for the meeting. We'll talk about it. And then we ended up doing it. It went really well. We did it for UFC 280. That was a pretty damn good card to start it on. And then right into UFC 281, had a couple of snoozers with 282 and 283. And then it's just been really fun. Like just going in there with GC, like we had a great rapport right away. I've obviously talked to him online and stuff. He's been on BTL once, and just a really good dude. And we just have a really good rapport. And then you mix in the heavy hitters in the back there with Mysterious Frank and Alex and all those guys. Just it's just really cool to be a part of that. And it gets kind of monotonous, like being in this room and watching fights and hosting all the shows. So, but at the same token, I do have a wife and I do have a son. So it's really hard to kind of do the Jose Young's road work where he's traveling to all these events every single month. He's gone for a week at a time. And I love doing that, but it's nice to not have to do that all the time. I could still get the vibes of the road, but I only have to go for one day. So that's been a real positive thing. And then as far as just being in MMA fighting, it's just been great. They have allowed me to just be me. And I think that's really cool. Any sort of idea that I've brought to the table, we've at least given it a shot. There are certain things that I have planted seeds about. We haven't been able to do logistically yet that we're going to try. Mm-hmm. But all in all, it's just been an honor to work. I was an avid MMA fighting reader for a while. And obviously I was a big MMA Hour mark back in the day. Like when I really started getting in the sport, I was kind of part of the show too. Like I do the On the Nose theme song, but before that I did the Rick Spix theme song before anyone even really knew who I was. And they gave me a platform and made it a part of that. And just being able to now work and call New York Rick a colleague and call Ariel a colleague, and Jose I've worked with before. So it's great to be able to work with him again. And my best friend AK, who I've never actually met in person, is great. And Shaheen is just the best writer in the game. And Stephen Morocco is a great writer and, has as Mick Foley would so eloquently say, the testicular fortitude to go after things and stories that not a lot of people will go after. And with Brian Tucker at the helm, it's just, it's just been great, man. I think everybody you would talk to would say this. I honestly think we have the best team in the game. I think we're doing things that not other teams are doing. I think we're putting out more content than anybody else. We're doing more original things than anybody else. So it's been really cool. And I still think that we're just sort of scratching the surface here of what we can actually do.
Definitely. I think I agree in terms of the MMA Hour and especially MMA fighting, it's unparalleled. I don't think there's any competition as compared to who's first in the MMA space, in my opinion. And sort of switching gears a little bit. I know massive MMA fan like myself is, but what I want to know is some of the hobbies outside you have of MMA. I saw some pics on your Instagram with your son playing golf, and you're a pretty avid golfer. I know I like my golf too, and so does my old man. So what sort of hobbies outside of cage fighting are you sort of into these days?
Oh, I love golf, man. Yeah. I'm not great at it, but I love playing, and I've been trying to get my kid into all sorts of different sports over the years, and nothing's really hit, but golf has, and he loves it. He wants to go play, and it's not about going to the range for him. He wants to go play. He wants to go play 9 holes, go play 18 holes. And we went out Wednesday afternoon and played a round. It was hot as hell, but we went out and played 9 holes, and we just had a really good time. He loves it. He's into it. So I love doing that. I love to work out. I got bit by the CrossFit bug back in December. I'm obsessed with it now. Just how challenging it is. Like I'm always a really competitive guy, but you can compete. You only really compete with yourself in CrossFit, which is really cool, but you're also getting pushed in the right ways by the coaches and all the people that are training with you. It's a very team oriented thing. And you just feel like you accomplish something after you get out of that gym every day. So I'm actually wearing the shirt right now. Shout out Mirror Fitness. But, awesome. Love doing that. Softball, just hanging out with the family, things like that. Just normal 40-year-old stuff, man.
We might see a little heck one day on the Live Tour earning $500 million.
Well, now it's the PGA Tour too. So
well, yeah.
Hey, listen, if he wants to go out and play golf and make $500 million, let's go.
That's exactly. Look, man. I do want to also get your thoughts on tomorrow afternoon for us here. The main event specifically, which was Amanda Nunes and Aldana. I sort of have this feeling that either way, with a win or a loss, I feel like Amanda would retire. I don't feel like there's much more left for her to continue. I know she said she didn't want to leave the belt in the hands of Juliana Pena. So if she were to lose, it's someone not Juliana Pena. So, but also I think a win, there's nothing really left for her to do in that area. So in your opinion, do you think sort of Amanda will finish up tomorrow night, and also who do you think takes that event? The main event, sorry.
So as far as the prediction goes, like my vibes told me from UFC 288, like right before 288, they had the press conference and they had the first face off. I'm like, I kind of feel like Irene Aldana is going to win. Yeah. I don't know why. I have no real technical breakdown. She's kind of the darling dog this week. A lot of people seem to think she's going to go in there and do it. But the more I go back and watch old fights, the more I think this is a tailor-made fight for Amanda Nunes. And outside of just something remarkable happening, she should go in 49-46 Irene Aldana and just win a pretty lopsided decision. Fun at points because Irene Aldana is durable and she's tough and this has the potential to be a dogfight. But I do think this is a tailor-made lopsided decision kind of a fight for Amanda Nunes, but I can't get rid of the vibes altogether. So my pick with just very little confidence, just going off gut and vibes, is Pre-Aldana getting a comeback knockout in the 4th round after losing pretty much every minute of the fight before that. Maybe gaining some momentum at the end of the 3rd round. Nunes gets a takedown, looks to be in control. Aldana gets up. Nunes starts to fade a little bit. Aldana lands a big shot, steals a little momentum, and then keeps that momentum going, gets her out of there in the 4th round. But to your other question, I think if she loses, she's definitely done. I think if she wins, I think she shuts the door and she locks the knob, but she doesn't lock the deadbolt.
Yeah.
I think if something interesting comes, I think she's going to take like a hiatus. I think she's going to keep the door somewhat open, but I think it's going to be, if she fights again, it's going to be for something big. Like something big has to come along. Somebody else has to come along, because this division is a mess. There's nobody for her to fight. Yeah. Right now it's Raquel Pennington. We've seen that fight already. Amanda beat the hell out of her. I don't know if that just gets her fired up at all. And there's Holly Holm's fighting Mayra Bueno Silva. Like, if Holly Holm wins again, the UFC is going to throw her into a title fight. If Mayra Bueno Silva wins, like, is Amanda Nunes going to be overly hyped to fight Mayra Bueno Silva? I don't think so. So maybe Kayla fights in the PFL and gets a big win, and she ends up over there and wins a few fights in the UFC, and maybe Amanda will come back and fight that. But I feel pretty strongly that worst case, Amanda's not going to fight for a long time. I think she's going to, if she wins, she sits out. She could be done altogether, but if something compelling and interesting comes along, I think it could entice her to come back. If we get a killer at 135 and she starts running people over and calling out Amanda Nunes, and like they're becoming a star and fans are invested in them, Amanda could come back for one last big money fight to humble somebody up. But other than that, I just don't think there's much there for her. What else does she need to do? You beat Ronda Rousey. You beat Holly Holm. You knocked out Chris Cyborg. You have 2 wins over Valentina Shevchenko. Like, what else does she need to do at this point?
Definitely, man. Well, look, something I did want to sort of get your opinion on also was, speaking of Ariel and stuff before, is something I always admired about Ariel and his reporting and journalism was that he always asked harder questions. He didn't give the softball questions that you sometimes hear at press conferences these days. He was always sort of, looking for the question that not many people would sort of ask. Do you think, in your opinion, that press conferences have become a little bit stale, being a media member yourself? And do you think that, what do you sort of think can be done to maybe freshen up the press conferences again? Because, there's no more, I don't think there's any more days of the hard-hitting questions. It's more of a softball question and answer sort of type deal.
I mean, I think there's time and place for everything. Like, you'd love to go ask Dana White about power slap and some of the numbers we feel that are being fudged around and fighter pay, like at a press conference heading into a fight. And like, that's cool and all. But at the end of the day, like, Dana can't hear anything you're saying anyways. So he's just going to ask you to repeat it. Then he's going to ask you a question in response to the question. And then the crowd's going to boo, and it's just going to be ridiculous. Like, I just feel like there's a time and a place for that. Post fight, different story. Different story. You want to get in there and have a little more time. You don't have the crowd. You're not dealing with, we're not trying to move. You have a little more of an opportunity. And I do feel like there are some times when the hard hitting questions are asked, but I do feel like just going to a press conference and doing it, it's just, if it's merited, like if Dana says something and you have the opportunity to follow up with it on something that he said, cool, go after it. But just go in there and just be confrontational all the time is a little tough. At the same token, the press conferences are tough, man. The questions are bad. People are yelling and screaming into the microphone. Just silly questions. Drives you crazy. I actually felt like the 289 one, for the most part, wasn't horrible. Thought it was a little bit better outside of there's one question somebody asked Ige and Landwehr about, like, if first takedown loses, like, this is a silly question. No disrespect, but it's just a silly question. And I thought both those guys navigated and did a great job. But the fix for that is just go back to the old media day style. Like, what we're getting 30-minute scrums with these fighters the day before the press conference, and then the same fighters are up at the press conference getting asked questions by the same people that were in the scrum room with them. Like,
giving the same answers.
You ask. So, like, if you just eliminated that or like went back to the old media day style where it's like one-on-ones, you get what you can, you get out of there. Everyone has their own content, their own questions, their own thing. Like if MMA Junkies there or we're there and Jose asks fighter X a certain question at his one-on-one scrum, he's not going to go and ask that same fighter the next one. And he might not even be able to talk to everybody at the media day. So I think that would freshen things up a little bit. Because if you consume everything, like you've already heard the press conference, it's just all you're missing is a face-off and Dana yelling and screaming about stuff. So I think that would make a big difference. But yeah, the pressers, if they just didn't do them anymore, it wouldn't hurt my feelings.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, man, also, for a long period of time, I think, Demetrius Johnson was definitely the least marketed champion, I think, by the UFC, which is, I think, a fair point. But in your opinion, obviously there's a new wave of champions these days. So is there anyone in your opinion, who you think is currently the least marketed, sort of like what DJ was back in the day, but, comparison to now?
I mean, I kind of feel like Aljamain Sterling is sort of DJ2 in that respect where I don't know. There's 7,000 fighters on the roster. You can only do so much with what you have. And I make this comparison all the time. Where the UFC is right now is where the WWE was in the mid to late 1980s, where they were just way far ahead of everybody. But they were still relatively new at what they were doing. Like people think MMA has been around for 1,000 years. It's still a baby. Like it is still a baby right now. Yeah. And especially this like new era of fighting and fighting actually getting into somewhat of a mainstream market. It's new. It's still growing up as we speak. So we're still learning lessons along the way, much like what WWE did. So what WWE did back in those days is, they had Hulk Hogan and they had Roddy Piper and they had some of these big names, Macho Man Randy Savage, but they had other undercard talent as well that weren't getting paid nearly to the level of the Hogans and all those other guys. They were established stars. They were built. They got over. And once they got over, the promotion put all the wheels in motion to just run them up. And when all these wrestlers would come over, what they would tell them is, hey, look, we can offer you this amount of money. It ain't a ton, but we can provide you an opportunity to get over. And if you get over, like we're going to put the bootstraps, like we're going to strap the rockets to you. And I feel like that's kind of where the UFC is right now because they don't need to change anything. There's no pressure from the fighters to make any change. And two, there's no competition. There's zero competition. PFL can sit there and scream, I'm number 2. And all these promotions can be like, yeah, we're a clear cut number 2. But the problem is nobody cares that you're number 2. Yeah. What we want is for somebody to actually be in the running at some point, to have some confidence that there is a chance to legitimately challenge the UFC and change the business. And until that happens, until a WCW comes along and changes the game, this is what it's going to be. The UFC has won the game. They are so far ahead. They are printing money. Right now, Dana's walking around the street and money is being printed in his office back in Las Vegas. They make so much money, it's ridiculous. Until somebody challenges them, it's just going to be the same thing. So they don't need to over-promote Aljamain Sterling right now. They don't need to over-promote Alexander Volkanovski right now. Like, Volkanovski is doing a nice job on his own with his skills. Yeah. But Sterling, just like, the whole thing with Dana and Sterling is just ridiculous. All of it is dumb. He's your champion. Just promote him like he's the champion. Just say, look, the dude had to go to the doctor and check out his hand or whatever because he just fought a week and a half ago. And if he gets cleared, he'll go fight Sean O'Malley. Like, the dude has never let us down. Like, can't you just say that rather than the whole back and forth and the tat-a-tat? It drives you crazy.
Definitely. Well, that was actually something I was going to ask you, was the Aljamain Sterling sort of situation. Do you think that, with UFC essentially forcing Aljo to make that such a quick turnaround, in August has sort of devalued him as a champion almost?
I don't think it devalued him. It's just the way that they did it. Like, Aljamain Sterling barely got to his locker room to take a shower after the fight, and Dana's at the press conference saying, "Oh, he's going to fight Sean O'Malley in Boston." Like, what? What are we talking about here? The guy just went through a 5-round war, and we're already booking his next fight. When Islam Makhachev hasn't fought in a year, or hadn't fought since February, and like a lot of these other fighters, we've had belts that haven't even been defended this year at all. And we have to push Aljamain Sterling to fight Sean O'Malley in Boston. And somehow there's this narrative painted that Sean O'Malley's going to fight in front of his hometown in Boston.
Yeah.
Sean O'Malley has no ties to Boston whatsoever. Like literally zero. Outside of the O and the apostrophe in front of his last name, that's it. There is no ties to Boston whatsoever. So we have to have Sean O'Malley fight in Boston was just kind of weird to me. But look, Aljo understands, like, if he wants to get the bag, this is the big money fight. I blame Aljo slightly to begin with because he had a great opportunity back in October after the Dillashaw flub to just call out Sean O'Malley, who just beat Petr Yan. Like, you should have wasted all your energy on that fight, and he didn't. He threw I'll fight this dude or this dude or this dude or this dude, maybe even Henry Cejudo. And as soon as Dana heard Henry's name, he's like, well, that's what we're doing. Yeah. You just got to be smarter with the call-outs. And I think Aljamain shot himself in the foot a couple of times too, but still at this point, the way he's been competing, the resume he has, the run he's on right now, he is going to be a guy, much like Demetrius Johnson, that when he either moves on or leaves the promotion or whatever, he's going to be a guy that's going to be much more appreciated after he's gone, after he's done fighting. We're going to be like, damn, that Aljamain Sterling was really good.
Yeah, I agree. Look, man, last one, last one from me. I don't want to keep you too long. I know you've had a very busy day, so last one.
I got a few extra minutes, so go for it.
Awesome, man. Well, last one anyway is PFL fall, obviously, last night. I actually quite enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty good event. Unfortunately, we saw another loss for Marlon, excuse me, for Marlon. And, obviously that's not something you sort of like seeing, towards someone's tail end of their career, suffering so many consistent TKO and KO losses for a guy like Marlon Moraes. What were your sort of thoughts on his legacy in MMA? And do you believe he maybe should have stayed retired when he originally retired from the UFC? I mean, it's hindsight.
Yeah, I mean, look, he wanted to. It seemed like he wanted to retire after getting knocked up by Song Yudong, and I think a lot of people were like, "All right, dude, like time's up." But then when you have PFL coming at you with like a whole bunch of money, like way more than he's probably making. I'm sure they paid him more than the UFC paid him. Yeah, you got a family, you got kids, all that. Like, you feel like the competition's a little bit lower. Like, you still have the chance, not only on top of the contract you're getting, but a chance to win $1 million. It's probably worth a shot. Yeah. Like, after the 2 losses and the Loughnane loss, like, he's still alive, I guess. Like, if he went out there and just bolted dude in the first round, he probably makes the playoffs and still is alive for the $1 million. So I get it. But after this one, you just kind of felt like the writing was on the wall. Yeah. And Marlon Moraes, even with these last 9 fights, because he's 1-8 in his last 9, the Aldo one's kind of a sketchy one. A lot of people thought Jose Aldo won that fight. The dude is exciting. Like, Marlon Moraes is the ultimate get or get got guy. He goes in there just looking to put on a barn burner. Either he's taking a nap, or the guy he's fighting is taking a nap. There is, whether you're heartbroken after the fact, you know that if Marlon Moraes fights, you're going to get his best and you're going to get something exciting either way. So he's one of the most exciting fighters I've ever seen. When the UFC signed him, I was so pumped. I was so excited. I'm like, oh yes, Marlon Moraes is in the UFC. And he had a tough fight with Sun Tzu, and then, wins another split decision in a second fight. And then we got to see Magic Marlon knocking out Jimmy Rivera, knocking out Aljamain Sterling, knocking out all these guys, getting quick finishes, gets revenge on Sun Tzu with a quick finish, and then gets a title shot. And he's beating the hell out of Henry Cejudo. Yeah. And Henry Cejudo comes back and is durable as hell and beats the hell out of him. And that fight just took a piece of Marlon Moraes right there. Like, so close, felt like the title was around his waist, just to have it just taken away in a flash. And I think that fight just kind of just took the great, I think that was peak Marlon Moraes. I think it all just kind of went downhill a little bit. And I think Henry Cejudo kind of took a little bit of his soul that night, and still didn't make him a less exciting guy. It just made him, I don't know, a little different. It made each fight a little more heartbreaking after seeing him so close. But Marlon's just one of the more exciting guys, one of the best dudes you'll ever talk to in the sport. Just so nice, always giving with his time, family man, just one of the really good guys. And in a sport like this, where I've been covering for a long time, there's a lot of good, there's a lot of negative too, and it gets pretty filthy in there if you really dive deep. But in this sport, if you look beyond that, there are the Marlon Moraeses of the world, and you're like, all right, maybe this isn't a bad place to be after all.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, Mike, I very much appreciate you giving us a bit of time and squeezing me in today. And look, man, I've been a fan of you for quite a few years now. Obviously, I watch a bit of BTL and obviously the Watch Hour parties and the MMA Hour and all that sort of stuff. So I very much appreciate you giving me a bit of time today, man. All the best for the weekend, and I'd love to talk to you again in future, man.
Anytime, man. Just hit me up and we'll make it happen. I appreciate all the scheduling switches I had to throw at you, but I appreciate it very much. And yeah, anytime, let me know.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it, man. Cheers.